Well, hey church family, it's Pastor Stephen here, giving an update on the new church name. Now I know that we have put out a few feelers, we've put out some questionnaires, we've put out some polls, different things like that, just to try to get an idea of where we want to head with the new name. And I can tell you this, that we have had a few good ones, and on top of that, we have had a few really good meetings together as deacons and elders combined, and us elders have had really good meetings as well. And I can tell you this, we have lost sleep. We have spent many nights awake. We have spent time in prayer, really thinking about who we are and what our new name should be moving forward. And one of the things that kept coming to the conversation was, what does our name say about who we are? So that really stuck and resonated with many of us. And we thought, what does it say about us? So I'm not going to belabor the point here, but I want to present to you the name that we have kind of brought to the forefront. Now, let me just say this. Not everyone is going to love this name, and just like not everyone loves the name South Caraway Baptist Church. But we want you to think about what it represents, who it represents, and where we point people to when they hear the name. So I want to present to you for discussion, for to think through, to pray through, and ultimately to push it out for a vote. But we would like to, as the elders and deacons of the church, present to you the name Christ Church Jonesboro. And it would look like Christ Church Jonesboro. And I know many of you may be thinking right now, well, it doesn't have Baptist in the name. And we understand that, and we've talked through that. But what we can do and would like to do underneath is kind of have a tagline that just simply says, a Reformed Baptist Church or a Baptist Church or something like that distinguishes us that we are indeed a Baptist church. So let me just give you a passage of Scripture, a couple of passages of Scripture as a matter of fact. So just to kind of back up the name. So when we think about what does our church name say about us, what does it represent? So if we look at Colossians chapter 1 verse 18, we read this, and he being Jesus, is the head of the body, the church. So we teach and believe and preach this often, that Christ is the head of our church. And if we flip over to Colossians chapter 3, verse 16, we read this, let the word of Christ dwell in you richly, teaching and admonishing one another in all wisdom, singing psalms and hymns and spiritual songs with thankfulness in your hearts to God. So we see those two passages alone really represent who we're about, and it's about Christ. I recently heard somebody say about our church is that we make Christ the main thing and we point people to Him. We're all about the gospel. We're all about pointing people to Christ. And I think about that. I think about what we're called to do, and I can't help but go to 1 Corinthians chapter 2 and what Paul has said in the first two verses there. He says, and when I came to you, brothers, I did not come proclaiming to you the testimony of God with lofty speech or wisdom, for I decided to know nothing among you except Jesus Christ and Him crucified. So our church is all about Christ. And then I think about, where do we want to point people in our community? Because we're moving to a brand new community. We want to point people to Christ. So when we're ministering to our mission field that's all around us, we want to point people to Christ and then tell them Christ Church is right down the road. Christ Church Jonesboro is here for you, because it represents who we are as we submit ourselves to Christ, as we let the word of Christ dwell in us richly and deeply, and as we recognize that Christ is the head of the church. Now, it's been said that, well, what if Church of Christ come into our place thinking that we're a Church of Christ place because we say Christ Church Jonesboro? I say that's great. I say if they come in, now when they see the guitar, they'll probably realize they're in the wrong place. But if they stay, they're going to hear the true gospel being preached. And furthermore, it's going to have the tagline underneath it that says a Reformed Baptist Church or a Baptist Church, whatever we decide on, whatever route we decide to go there. But we are going to distinguish if we move forward with this name. But I can't help but think about a name that it just captures who we are as a people that love Christ, that trust Christ, and point people to Christ. And that we don't come into the pulpit teaching creeds and confessions. We don't come into the pulpit and teach Reformed theology. We don't teach Baptist theology, although we do believe Baptist theology is the correct theology. Baptist theology and doctrine, we believe is correct, but we preach Christ and Christ crucified, much like Paul mentions in 1 Corinthians chapter 2, verses 1 and 2. So that's an update. We're throwing this video out, letting you just kind of think on it. We close a week from tomorrow, assuming we don't get pushed back because of the weather. But we're going to close, and shortly after we close, we're hoping to make that legal name change and become Christ Church Jonesboro, a Baptist church in the heart of our town. And I'm looking forward to the move. I can't wait. And I can tell you this, God is doing something amazing in our church right now. If you were at church Wednesday night, you get a feel for it, and probably got a feel for it. And just the things He's doing around us is amazing. He's putting us in the middle of one of the greatest mission fields in our city. And I can't wait. And I can't wait to point people to Christ as His church, and as we proclaim the gospel and point people to Him. So I'd love for you to comment your thoughts if you want to here in the GroupMe, or think on it, pray on it, and then eventually we will push this forward for kind of an affirmation, if you will. And if there's a bunch of heavy pushback, we can always drop back and punt and rethink it. But after a lot of thinking, praying, and just seeking the Lord about what our name represents, we believe that Christ Church Jonesboro would be a beautiful name for a beautiful church that belongs to Him. I hope you guys have a great night, a great week, and prepare for that snow.